Hello and welcome back. All right, so in this lesson, we're going to learn about the white balance option in ACR. Now, you're going to have different options for JPEG images and RAW files. So we're going to go over both in this lesson, and then we're going to apply our white balance to this particular image here because we're going to be editing this image throughout the rest of this section. So if you want to follow along, go ahead and grab image 001 and image 002, which is our raw file. You're going to notice right here in the middle, I have another edit of this particular image, and this is a creative edit. So once we're done with this section, we're going to have an image that looks similar to this because we're going to take this image and do a clean, custom, and creative edit. So let's go ahead and get started by opening up these files in ACR. And here's the differences between JPEG and RAW files for white balance. If we come over here to the white balance section, we have an option here. It says as shot. If I click on it, we also have auto and custom. So if I click on auto, then ACR is going to automatically choose the white balance for us. Doesn't mean it's going to be right, but you do have that option to let ACR decide for you. Or you can do custom, which is basically increasing or decreasing the temperature in the tint. If we take a look at our raw file, again, it says as shot, but it has more options. And these options may look familiar to you because a lot of these should be available on your camera. Most cameras have these types of white balance profiles. So we can keep it as shot, which is how we captured it in camera. If you don't like that, you can choose something else. Again, we can do auto, or we can select daylight, cloudy, shade, or one of the other options. And then if you're still not happy with one of the selections, if you can't find something that you want, you can then make your final tweaks with your sliders here to increase or decrease the warmth of that particular image, and then increase or decrease the reds or the greens in the color casts of your image. Now, you do have the option to use an eyedropper tool in order to set the white balance for the image. And what you're going to do with your eyedropper tool, which is located right here, or you can use the keyboard shortcut, which is the letter I. So in order to use this particular tool, you're going to want to click on an area that is supposed to be neutral gray, and that's going to remove the color cast from your image and set the proper white balance. So I think right in this area we have some gray stone that should be neutral in color. So I'm going to go ahead and click in this area to see what we get. And as you can see, it's now much cooler than it was before. If you prefer a warmer image, then you can choose a different area, or you can simply come over here and adjust the temperature for the image until you're happy with a white balance that works for your personal preference. Now again, as I had mentioned before, the best thing to do is to capture your white balance in camera so you don't have to worry about making these adjustments in ACR, and that's going to save you a lot of time. So do the best you can by applying the white balance in camera by setting the Kelvin temperature to your preferred setting, and then you won't have to make these adjustments. You can always come back and retweak it as needed if it's off by a little bit, but the closer you are to a perfect white balance in camera, the less editing you're going to have to do in ACR. Now, if you're going to use the eyedropper tool, here's another quick tip. If we come over to our histogram, we have 3 values, RGB. So what you want to try and do is find RGB values that are very close together. So right now we have 74, 72, and 59. So that means there's more red in this particular area than the other 2 colors. So if I click on it, the colors are now closer together with 72, 71, and 70, and it's a more neutral type setting versus what it was before. But again, you may need to tweak this based on your own personal preference. I think it's too red and too blue, so I'm going to go a little bit warmer. Now, if I come over here to a different area that I think should be a neutral color, like in the shaded area right here, we can see that the RGB values are much closer together. We have 17, 18, and 17. So the color cast in this area is now neutral, and we have set the white balance properly. But I did that by applying the temperature and tints to my personal preference. So I'm going to go ahead and reset this by clicking on this icon, coming down and resetting the camera raw defaults. If I come back over here, we can see that the values are 14, 19, and 15. And now if I click in this area, again, it brings them closer together at 17, 18, and 18. And the white balance is now properly set for this image, at least for my personal taste. Maybe you like something different. So finding a neutral area is key to setting the proper white balance, but it doesn't mean it's going to work 100% of the time, because you still may need to tweak the temperature and the tint sliders for your own personal preference. Again, can't repeat this enough. This is why it's important to nail your white balance in camera so you don't have to worry about doing this in ACR. All right, before we move on, let's go ahead and set the white balance for this particular image so we can continue working on it in upcoming lessons. So I'm going to use my eyedropper tool to see if there's a color cast in the shadow areas right here. And as you can see, the RGB values are very close together. So that means I nailed my white balance in camera, and I really don't need to make any adjustments. If I click on it right now, actually it's at 4, 4, and 4. If I click on it, it's not going to do much. Now it did increase the reds and the temperature to more yellow, but personally I prefer the white balance that I captured in camera, and I'm going to go ahead and reset that and just leave the white balance as is. If you prefer a different white balance, you can go ahead and make those adjustments now. Just go ahead and adjust the sliders accordingly to your own personal taste. And then we'll go ahead and get started on the next part of the editing process, which is reviewing our histogram to determine what we need to edit next. So if you're ready to get started on that, let's do it.